Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Julian Morris, Channel 5 News. It's a privilege to be here again today. I just wanted to ask Mrs. Mackenzie whether Domlec was still having challenges with people who are using generators and feeding back into the system. Is that still a problem? Do you have a difficulty with that?
Not at this time. The customers who are using generators have heeded our call, and we've not seen areas of backfeed.
And I also wanted to ask you, as you were going through the statistics for powering up, I think you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, cane fill 10%. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yes, I was about to ask you what accounts for the low percentage for cane fill. What really accounts for that?
Okay. Well, we started that a few weeks. We started with the Kinfield Industrial Estate, where we were pouring up the industrial and commercial customers.
10% you said encompasses both in industrial
and yeah, the industrial estate is the industrial estate.
Oh, it doesn't include. You're not talking residential yet, right? Is that what?
Some residential, but minimal, because our focus was on the industrial estate. So
okay.
that's why it's 10%.
Okay, well, my question is a little biased because I live in Canefield, so I'm
Oh, okay. You're talking from a personal standpoint. Yes. But right. So that's yes. This is where when we mention the areas and the percentage, that is we commenced and we're going to continue dealing with the area.
Okay.
So in your area we are in your area. There are places that we're not in the area at all.
There's one family there who is a little concerned with what they consider high-powered lines running across their yard. Of course, I was reassured by a Domlec official that these things will definitely be taken care of. So I was wondering how going forward, how are you dealing with this reports of that and people who are concerned lines going through their yards and what have you? They're afraid they get powered up and get electrocuted or something. So how you're responding to those things?
I can let Mr. Lavigne respond to that, but we are dealing with it. But he'll give us some more detailed information. Then we'll come.
Good morning to all and the listening public. We do have a crew who's focused on clearing up lines and poles in people's yards and on the roofs. So we do have crews going out focused solely on doing those sorts of work.
Do you have instances where people call on Domlec to deal with lines that do not necessarily belong to Domlec? People don't understand whose lines, to which company does this line belong? So they say, well, what if you see a line, it must be Domlec. Does that? How do you deal with that?
Yes, we do have some of those. And so the supervisor who's responsible for that, he goes out and do an inspection before the crew comes in and do the recovery work that is required.
Okay. The only other question I have is for Mrs. Yes.
Yeah, what I'd like to add is that persons who have these situations where the lines and the poles or the hardware of Domlec is in on the porch or in the yard, to provide us with the information so that we can deal with it, because we, as Lemon said, we have crews dedicated, but we may miss something. So if the customers can provide us with the feedback through the regular.
And finally, my final question really is, how do you characterize the outcome in terms of, I know you have all these, you have support from Carilec, from other, you also mentioned additional teams coming in 2 weeks or what have you. How does Domlec manage all of that and divide your task up and what have you? How is that impacting the speed with which you're recovering? Obviously, it's helping, but how is that working out?
Well, should have stayed to answer, because he's dealing with the restoration.
Good morning again. What we are doing, we have a list of priorities, and we've started with the commercial area and the industrial areas that all of us rely on, and from there we move into the residential neighborhoods and the other infrastructure that are necessary to keep the network up and keep it stable. Because even while we are restoring, we need to have a stable system that customers can get connected to. So we are using that to strategize where we place the crews, so that when the crews come in, we can maximize the amount of work that they do. For example, we have the Cubans on one of the interconnectors to Trafalgar. and they're focusing on that solely. By the end of their reconstruction, would have the hydro then linked to Fonkoli so that the cost of the electricity can drop and we can get the valley and other associated areas powered up. Well, when the teams leave, it's back to our local crews, and our local crews have been working hard. We're ensuring that they get sufficient rest, because we do recognize that this is not a sprint race, it's a marathon. So they are getting sufficient rest, and we are doing our best to make sure that we can get this restoration done in sufficient manner. They're also allowed to get vacation so that they can, obviously, we are not working with 100% of our employees. When I say 100%, I mean that you have linemen there that also have the issues at home that they haven't been able to address sufficiently with while they work. So we are not working 100% because of all of us are impacted while we work. So that has had some impact on the restoration, but it is going along well enough.
My question is in relation to the crews. When they leave, do you think that you guys would need extra help or extra workers to deal with the level of work that you guys have to?
Yeah. What we intend to do is to continue to make requests of Carilec to provide crews. So when these crews leave, I have, in fact, mentioned that to Carilec already, that when these crews leave, and they will be leaving before Christmas, then we can get some in January, because they would need to go, it may not be the exact persons, but the utilities can send another crew. So that is going to be ongoing. So we expect to have that assistance.
Maybe any local workers added on from like Dominica?
We've added in for T&D many casual employees, yeah, to assist with the process, definitely. But you know that our work is highly skilled and highly specialized. And so you just really kind of just take somebody who doesn't have the skill set to come and string lines or do the connections required. So, you know.
You said that in order to get powered up houses-wise, people have to be recertified.
Yes.
Are you suggesting every single house in Dominica must, regardless of its level of impact, has to get certification?
Yes, this is the directive of the electrical division. For obvious reasons, for safety purposes.
Okay. I have another question. How do you respond to some frustration that people are seeing neighbors next to them have power, and they're literally either across the street or right next to that house with power, and they do not have power? Right. How do you explain that?
Okay. The way the system is, you have different circuits. And so the person next to you may be on a different circuit, or across the street may be on a different circuit. I'll give you an example. When we did Roseau, we had a situation where DPEX was powered up, and the IRC, the regulators, which is next door, were not, because they were on different circuits, and that circuit had not been rebuilt. So if your circuit has not been rebuilt, but if your neighbor has power, shortly you will have, because as soon as we deal with it, as soon as we build the circuit and get everything clear, look at the transformer, make sure the transformer is fine, because you may be on a different transformer as well. So I know, because we've been faced with that. People call in and say, well, my neighbor has power, and then you come with the issue of favoritism and so on, but it's not. Because we really want everybody to come back. We need the load.
Also, you have a system for restoring the people back onto the grid, meaning you have a priority, you're doing businesses and the like, and then you're going to other areas. As far as the removal of poles and lines, is there a system for that as well, or not?
Let me let Lemuel do that.
Yes, there is a system for the removal of poles and lines. The crews go through and do the reconnections, do the restoration, and sometime thereafter we have crews coming who are doing the salvaging, the recovering the poles and pieces of lines that will be left along the roadside. Obviously, because of the volume, we're unable to address it in a quick enough manner, but we do have a system in place for that. So if there's any particular situation that's creating an issue for any customer, then again, we just need to be aware of it, and we could prioritize it in the schedule.
Let me flesh out what I'm asking you a little bit better. Are you, with the system that you have, are you saying, let's do the places which we consider to be most critically damaged and going down the line? This is what I'm trying to understand. How do you decide this place we're going to remove the lines and not this place yet? Is it Canefield? Is it Fokole? How are you deciphering where you go to remove poles and lines first and in any order?
Right, by the level of safety. So if there's a situation that is more unsafe than another, then we'll address that first. But the objective is to ensure that if we cannot address a particular situation, it can be made safe while we address those that are more urgent.
I want to ask a question to the
Of course.
questions I think are not being asked. Right now, there are numerous generators in Dominica. Is Domlec concerned at all that it may have a problem with the number of personal generators that there are and people coming back onto the national grid?
From my review of the situation, the cost to own and maintain a personal generator, these portable generators, is vastly greater than the cost of your Domlec monthly electricity bill. And customers are meeting me all the time and saying, I need to get back onto Domlec because really I'm spending X number of dollars in gas or diesel, and my Domlec bill was less than half of that. So I don't believe that there will be a problem. In terms of the regulation of that, that falls within the purview of the Independent Regulatory Commission.
Final question, Mr. Lavinier. I know you mentioned the fact that you know you have a lot of staff who, you know, people are challenged, you know, people are exhausted, burnt out, what have you, and you're still doing the task, getting the job done. But I want to look at the other part of it, your materials, the stuff you need to do what you need to do. Do you have what you need to do what you need to do? What challenges do you face in that particular area there?
Yeah, we don't have all of what we need to do what we have to do. The materials are coming in slowly. Obviously, the level of devastation that's to the network could not have been envisaged before. So we have a large number of our transformers that are damaged, a large number of our street lights that are damaged through the storm. Then you have the post-storm damage, which also limits the restoration. For example, you have areas you pass and you assess and you determine your scope of work, and a few weeks later, because of other works taking place in the country by persons, then the scope of work has changed. Areas you would not have had to replace lines, you now have to look for lines to replace those areas because the lines were damaged because of other activities. So we do have those challenges. They are not insurmountable, but they are challenges that do hamper the restoration. But notwithstanding, we'll continue to press ahead.
Sure. From what I understand, that there are some villages which are powered that receive water from electricity. They need electricity to power their water supply. Has there been any extra efforts put towards regenerating the electricity for these areas so that they can get water?
Yes. We are working with DOWASCO to implement solutions that can be used to get the pumps forward so that the areas can receive water. Obviously, some of those locations, because of the distance away from the nearest power source, then local generation has to be made available. So the cooperation is necessary, and as Mr. Mackenzie mentioned earlier, we are receiving quite a bit of cooperation with the other utilities.
Will weigh in on this one. Have you, obviously, this is going to cost you an arm and a leg what you're doing now. Have you considered the estimated cost of this project, this rebuilding project? You know, do you have any ballpark on it in terms of a sense of what you're looking at?
We have an estimated figure of 18 to 20 million US.
Million?
Yes.
US or is it?
US, they said that.
Oh, 18 to 20
Yes,
million.
into 20 million US.
Thank you, Ms.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I try not to jump in and ask questions, but DOMLEC is a major partner of the government of Dominica. The people of Dominica listening and my colleagues who are not here, I am asking the questions that I am sure you want to ask because of how critical the work of DOMLEC is. And so I thank you for your indulgence, both Mrs. Mackenzie and Mr. Lavenier. And at this time, without any further ado, I thank all of you once again, specifically DOMLEC, for the work that you're doing and for your presence here to be accountable to the people of Dominica and the residents of Dominica. Mrs. Bertilia Leblanc Mackenzie, the General Manager of DOMLEC, Mr. Lemuel Lavenier, the Manager Engineering, Distribution and Transmission, also the leader of the restoration of lines, in short, the man with all the pressure on his shoulders, and Adina Bellat Valentine, the Public Relations Officer of DOMLEC. Again, I thank the media present here and those of you following off-site. I thank Dominicans, residents, one and all, both here and abroad. Thank you once again and have a great day.